The first thing that you need to get out is your Brown graphic organizer. We filled in the postulates from yesterday and the diagrams from yesterday. So today we're going to go to the back and fill in this algebra properties section. You have been solving equations since Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and you're really good at that now. And what we're going to look at is the properties behind how you solve equations and why you're allowed to do what you do. So the first property we're going to talk about is the addition property. And what that says is that if you add something to both sides, that the equation is still equal. These are all properties of equality. So if A equals B, then A plus C equals B plus C. It's really important that you remember you have to do it to both sides. The subtraction property of equality says that if A equals B, then you can subtract the same number from both sides and the equation will still be equal. So I can take A minus C, and that would be equal to B minus C. Again, happening to both sides. The multiplication property says that I can multiply both sides by the same number and it will still be equal. So if I take A times C, that should still be equal to B times C. For example, if I have an equation like x over 4 equals 3 and multiply both sides by 4, I'm able to do that by this multiplication property because I did it to both sides. The next one is the division property. Very similar. If we have A equals to B, we can divide both sides by the same number and it will still be equal. So A over C equals B over C. For example, if I have 2x equals 6, I can divide both sides by 2 to get that x equals 3. So the biggest key from these four properties is that it has to be done to both sides. You can't just add on one side, subtract on one side. You have to do it to both sides. That's what keeps the equation equal. The next property is the substitution property. And all that means is, again, something you've been doing for a long time, is you can substitute a number in for something that's equal. So if A equals B, then A can be substituted for B in any equation or expression. So if I have an equation or an expression like 2x plus 4, and I know that x equals 2, then I can take 2 times 2 plus 4, just substituting that number in. Distributive property is something you should be really familiar with. That just says I can take a number and distribute it into a quantity. So I would take A times B and add A times C. A real life example that you might have done is something like 2 times x plus 4 would be 2x plus 8. The very last one is one that's a little bit tricky to differentiate between when to use simplify and when you're using any of these other properties up here. So I'm going to show you an example. Let's say I am solving an equation like x over 2 equals 1/2. X over 2 equals 1/2. If I want to solve for x, I have to multiply by 2. I would be multiplying by 2 using the multiplication property. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cross that out. I would be multiplying by 2 using the multiplication property. So what I would have left is x equals, if I take 1/2 times 2, that's 2 over 2. So using the multiplication property, I multiply both sides by 2, and I'm left with this. Now, if I want to simplify, I would say x equals 2 over 2. I can rewrite that as x equals 1. Notice I divided 2 by 2, but I didn't do it to both sides. All I did was simplify 2 divided by 2, and that's 1. So if I'm writing out my steps or my reasons for each step of my equation, that reason would be simplify, because I just did it to one side. Same thing maybe if you have like y equals 10 plus 14. You could say y equals 24, and this would be because you can simplify. It's not like I'm adding 14 to both sides. I'm just simplifying something I already have on one side.